Godzilla, the fire-breathing, city-stomping lizard, he continues to captivate audiences worldwide.
It's fascinating.
How a giant monster, born from the ashes of post-war Japan, has such enduring appeal across generations and cultures.
Yeah.
But beyond the monster mayhem, Godzilla often carries a deeper meaning, a reflection of our anxieties
Right.
and the times we live in.
Exploring Godzilla's evolution as a metaphor, I think, can reveal how our understanding of nuclear power and its consequences has shifted over time.
Let's start with the granddaddy of them all, the 1954 Gojira.
Okay.
It's impossible to ignore the shadow of Hiroshima and Nagasaki looming over this film.
Gojira emerged just 9 years after the atomic bombings, and these events were fresh wounds in Japan's collective psyche. Godzilla's scarred appearance reflects the horrific effects of radiation.
Serving as a chilling embodiment of that trauma.
Right, exactly.
The film doesn't shy away from depicting those effects.
No.
The scene where the doctor checks a child with a Geiger counter and solemnly shakes his head is incredibly poignant.
Yeah.
It serves as a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of nuclear fallout, a fear that was very real for people at the time.
And that fear was amplified by real-world events happening concurrently with the film's release.
Oh.
In 1954, the same year Gojira hit theaters, the Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon No. 5, was exposed to radiation from a U.S. H-bomb test.
Wow.
This incident, known as the third atomic bombing of Japan, made the film's message about the dangers of nuclear testing hit even closer to home.
Considering the original's powerful anti-nuclear message,
Yeah.
it's surprising how the American version, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, just missed the mark.
The American adaptation stripped away much of the original's political commentary.
Really?
In trying to make it palatable for American audiences, the U.S. role in nuclear testing was downplayed, and the focus shifted to a more generic monster movie narrative. For example, one striking difference is how the original Japanese version highlights the human cost of the monster's attack, showing the devastation and suffering of the people.
Right.
The American version, however, focuses more on the spectacle of the monster's destruction.
Minimizing the human impact.
Right.
It feels like they sanitized the story, turning a powerful statement into a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
And later American Godzilla films often depict the monster as a force that can be neutralized or even defeated with nuclear weapons. A complete reversal of the original's message.
This shift in perspective underscores how nuclear power was perceived differently on either side of the Pacific.
Yeah.
For Japan, it was a source of immense trauma and a cautionary tale. For the U.S., it was increasingly seen as a tool, even against other monstrous threats.
Right.
This difference in perception is further highlighted in how the scientists are portrayed in both versions.
Okay.
In the Japanese Gojira, the scientist who creates the oxygen destroyer is deeply conflicted about his creation, understanding its devastating potential. In the American version, the scientist is portrayed as a hero, with his invention seen as a necessary evil to defeat the monster.
The latest film, Godzilla -1, seems to reflect a shift in our nuclear anxieties.
Instead of fearing a single apocalyptic nuclear event,
Right.
Godzilla -1 taps into the anxieties of ongoing nuclear proliferation and an ever-present threat. It reflects a world where the threat of nuclear war is no longer a distant possibility, but a constant looming presence.
The image of Godzilla's remaining cells multiplying underground is a powerful visualization of the persistent danger of nuclear technology. It's like a visual representation of the fear that even if we avoid a major nuclear catastrophe, the lingering effects of radiation and the potential for future incidents will continue to haunt us.
Absolutely. The way Godzilla is fought in the films has also shifted.
Yeah.
In the original, it was the oxygen destroyer, a weapon of immense destructive power that served as a stark reminder of the horrific consequences of scientific advancement.
Right.
In Godzilla -1, it's freon gas, a more controlled approach that relies on scientific understanding of the monster's weaknesses.
Both methods, though vastly different, rely on human ingenuity, on finding solutions to problems caused by our own technological advancements. The original Gojira seemed to suggest that even our most brilliant solutions could have unintended and devastating consequences. Godzilla -1, on the other hand, perhaps offers a glimmer of hope that through understanding and careful application of science, we might be able to mitigate the dangers we have created.
This raises the question of whether human ingenuity is enough to deal with the complexities of the nuclear age.
Right.
The films may not offer a definitive answer, but they remind us that critical thinking and responsible use of technology are crucial for our survival. They also highlight the importance of international cooperation and understanding, as the threat of nuclear war is not confined to any one nation, but affects us all.
Godzilla Minus One also highlights the power of ordinary people in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The film features civilian veterans taking on Godzilla, a possible nod to the real-life rise of Japanese civil society movements advocating for nuclear disarmament. This suggests that even in the face of overwhelming power and seemingly insurmountable obstacles, ordinary people can make a difference.
The metaphorical depth of Godzilla truly shines through here. The monster becomes a stand-in for the dangers we face, not just from nuclear weapons, but from any disruption of the natural order.
So is Godzilla still relevant as a cautionary tale in the 21st century, or has the monster become more of a pop culture icon than a symbol of genuine fear?
The question is whether we are becoming desensitized to the threat of nuclear weapons. Do we see them as a relic of the past or a real danger? The answer likely lies somewhere in between.
The legacy of Godzilla itself is a blend of entertainment and social commentary, a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create. The evolution of the franchise from a stark warning about nuclear holocaust to a more nuanced exploration of humanity's relationship with technology and the natural world is a testament to the enduring power of the Godzilla myth.
The Godzilla myth endures because it forces us to confront our anxieties, acknowledge the consequences of our actions, and consider our responsibility for the future.
That's a pretty heavy message for a giant lizard to carry.
Perhaps, but a message we can't afford to ignore.
The way Godzilla has been reinterpreted, particularly in American cinema, is fascinating. It reveals a lot about how our anxieties have shifted.
We've gone from Godzilla as a terrifying embodiment of nuclear fallout to a protector, a force of nature that's sometimes on our side. In many later films, Godzilla battles other monsters, often ones that are even more destructive or represent different kinds of threats. It's as though we're projecting our anxieties onto these new creatures, and Godzilla becomes a symbol of the power we need to combat them.
So instead of fearing the monster, we're looking to the monster for protection.
Exactly.
That's quite the shift in perspective.
It is.
It makes you wonder what those other monsters represent.
Well, each monster can be interpreted as a metaphor for a different kind of fear. Some might represent environmental destruction, others might symbolize social unrest, and still others might embody technological threats.
Consider how those anxieties evolved alongside global events. The Cold War era gave us King Ghidorah, a three-headed hydra representing the threat of communism and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. As environmental concerns grew, in the 70s and 80s, we saw the rise of monsters like Hedorah, the smog monster, embodying pollution and humanity's disregard for the natural world.
Godzilla is very different from traditional Western monsters.
In what way?
Well, in Western storytelling, monsters are typically seen as embodiments of evil, forces of chaos that must be vanquished. Godzilla, especially in the original Japanese films, is more complex. It's a force of nature, both destructive and awe-inspiring, a creature born from our own mistakes, a reminder of the consequences of tampering with forces beyond our control. This difference in perspective might also stem from cultural differences in how nature is perceived. In Western cultures, nature is often seen as something to be conquered and controlled, whereas in Japan, there's a greater emphasis on harmony and coexistence with nature.
It's like Godzilla is holding up a mirror to humanity. Forcing us to confront our own capacity for both creation and destruction.
Absolutely.
It's a question of whether we can learn from our mistakes or if we're doomed to repeat them.
That's a great point.
This question resonates far beyond monster movies. We need to ask ourselves this about every aspect of our lives, from how we treat the environment to how we develop and use technology.
We live in a time of unprecedented technological advancements and interconnectedness, but also increasing uncertainty and risk, the rise of artificial intelligence, the threat of climate change, and the potential for global conflict all contribute to a sense of unease, a feeling that we're teetering on the brink of something catastrophic. And perhaps Godzilla, with its monstrous power and unpredictable nature, serves as a potent symbol of that unease, a reminder of the precariousness of our existence.
We're constantly walking a tightrope between progress and disaster, and one wrong step could send us tumbling into the abyss.
I agree.
Maybe Godzilla is there to remind us of that.
I think so.
Godzilla forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about ourselves, to acknowledge our own capacity for both good and evil.
Right.
It reminds us that the greatest threat to humanity might not be some external force, but our own hubris and inability to learn from our mistakes.
This lesson is worth remembering.
Absolutely.
Whether we're talking about nuclear power, climate change,
Right.
or any other challenge facing our world today.
You mentioned earlier how Godzilla has become a symbol of Japanese pop culture. From video games to comic books to countless merchandise. Godzilla is everywhere.
He is.
It's like the monster has achieved a kind of immortality, a testament to its enduring appeal.
This speaks to the power of storytelling.
Uh-huh.
Even a creature born from the darkest depths of our fear can evolve and transform into a symbol of hope, resilience, and even fun.
Yeah.
The way Godzilla is portrayed in popular culture often reflects the values and aspirations of the time.
Right.
In post-war Japan, Godzilla represented the nation's trauma and anxieties. But as Japan rebuilt and its economy boomed, Godzilla gradually transformed into a more heroic figure, a protector of the nation, and a symbol of its strength and resilience.
Godzilla has come full circle from a terrifying reminder of our destructive capacity to a beloved cultural icon that brings people together.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the underlying message that Godzilla carries, the importance of responsibility, considering the consequences of our actions, and finding ways to coexist with the natural world.
This message is more relevant than ever as we grapple with the challenges of a rapidly changing world.
Let's dive into another facet of Godzilla's evolution.
Okay.
The portrayal of women in the Godzilla franchise. From helpless damsels to brilliant scientists, the role of women in these films has gone through interesting changes over time.
The evolution of female characters in Godzilla films mirrors broader societal shifts in how we view women's roles and contributions.
Early Godzilla films were not exactly known for their strong female characters.
In many of the early films, women were relegated to roles of damsels in distress, love interests for the male protagonists, or simply background characters with little agency. This was reflective of the societal norms of the time, where women were often expected to be passive and subservient, their lives revolving around the men in their lives.
They just screamed and fainted at the sight of the monster while the men saved the day.
It's a reflection of the prevailing gender stereotypes of the time, where women were often portrayed as passive and dependent, while men were the heroes and decision makers. However, as societal attitudes towards women began to change, so did the portrayal of women in Godzilla films.
As the Godzilla franchise progressed, we saw a shift in how women were portrayed. Characters like Miki Sagusa in the High Z series, a brilliant psychic who could communicate with Godzilla, started to emerge.
Miki is a great example of a female character who broke the mold. She wasn't just a love interest or a damsel in distress. She had special abilities, played a crucial role in understanding and communicating with Godzilla, and actively contributed to the efforts to save humanity. Her emergence coincided with a period of increased female participation in the workforce and growing recognition of women's intellectual capabilities.
She wasn't afraid to stand up to the male characters and challenge their authority when necessary.
Miki represented a new generation of female characters in Godzilla films. Intelligent, resourceful, and capable of holding their own in a world dominated by giant monsters and scientific advancements. She was a reflection of the changing times, a symbol of the growing empowerment of women in Japanese society.
This trend continued in later films, with characters like Dr. Vivienne Graham in the Monsterverse, a paleobiologist who studies Godzilla and other giant creatures.
Dr. Graham is another great example of a strong, independent female character. She's a scientist, a leader, and not afraid to get her hands dirty in the field. She's a far cry from the screaming damsels of earlier films. Her character reflects the increasing prominence of women in STEM fields and the growing acceptance of women in leadership roles.
The Godzilla franchise has caught up with the times, recognizing that women can be just as intelligent, brave, and capable as men.
This shifting representation reflects a broader societal shift towards gender equality, where women are increasingly seen as equal partners in all aspects of life.
Even in the world of giant monsters and apocalyptic threats, we're seeing progress in how women are portrayed.
It's a reminder that representation matters. And even in fantastical stories, it's important to see ourselves reflected in the characters on screen.
Maybe one day we'll even see a female Godzilla. Now that would be a game changer.
I'm sure there's a compelling story to be told there. The idea of a female Godzilla could be a powerful metaphor for female empowerment, challenging traditional gender roles and notions of power.
Godzilla has become a truly international icon with fans all over the world.
He has.
It's interesting to see how different cultures have interpreted and adapted the Godzilla myth to their own contexts.
In the U.S., Godzilla has often been seen through the lens of Cold War anxieties, representing the threat of nuclear annihilation and the fear of the unknown. But in other parts of the world, Godzilla has taken on different meanings. In some countries, it's seen as a symbol of nature's power, a reminder of the forces beyond our control. In still others, Godzilla has become a symbol of resilience, a creature that rises from the ashes of destruction, representing the ability to overcome adversity.
This global appeal of Godzilla can be partly attributed to the universality of its themes. While the monster itself might be a product of Japanese culture, the anxieties it represents, fear of destruction, the consequences of technological advancement, and humanity's relationship with nature are shared by people across the globe.
The Godzilla myth is about humanity's relationship with nature, technology, and the forces that shape our world.
It's a story that transcends borders and languages.
It does.
Tapping into our deepest fears and aspirations.
That's what makes Godzilla such a powerful and enduring figure in global pop culture.
We've covered a lot today, from the origins of Godzilla as a symbol of nuclear fear to its evolution into a global pop culture icon.
We have.
We've explored the historical, cultural, and even gender dynamics of the Godzilla franchise. But we haven't really touched on one crucial aspect.
And what's that?
The fun factor.
At the end of the day, Godzilla is a giant monster movie.
It is.
It's meant to be entertaining, thrilling, and yes, even a bit cheesy at times.
That's part of what makes it so enjoyable.
It is.
We can get caught up in the serious themes and metaphors. But we shouldn't forget that Godzilla is also a source of pure, unadulterated fun.
The sheer spectacle of a giant monster wreaking havoc on a city.
The
over-the-top action sequences and the often cheesy dialogue all contribute to the unique charm of the Godzilla franchise.
The over-the-top action sequences, the cheesy dialogue, the sheer spectacle of a giant monster wreaking havoc on a city. It's all part of the Godzilla experience.
And don't forget the iconic roar that sends shivers down your spine and makes you want to cheer for the monster even as it's destroying everything in its path.
It's a reminder that sometimes it's okay to just sit back, relax, and enjoy a good monster movie without overthinking it.
Exactly. Godzilla is a complex and multifaceted creature, but it's also a reminder that sometimes it's okay to just embrace the absurdity and have some fun.
So, to all the Godzilla fans out there, let's raise a glass, or maybe a giant can of radioactive soda to the king of the monsters. Long live Godzilla. The sheer weirdness of the Godzilla franchise is undeniable.
It is.
We've got giant moths, three-headed dragons, robotic doppelgangers, even a space Godzilla.
That's right.
It seems like the creators just threw every crazy idea they could think of at the wall to see what stuck.
That's part of the charm. The Godzilla universe is a wonderfully bizarre blend of science fiction, fantasy, and cultural commentary. A playground for the imagination where anything is possible and no idea is too outlandish. Each monster, no matter how outlandish, often reflects a real-world concern or anxiety. Take Gigan, the cyborg monster with buzzsaw hands and laser eyes. This creature, introduced in the early 70s, could be seen as a reflection of anxieties about technological overreach and the increasing mechanization of society.
It's not just the monsters themselves. The plots of these movies can get pretty wild, too. Aliens trying to conquer Earth, secret societies plotting to unleash Godzilla, and scientists creating crazy gadgets and weapons. A fever dream of Cold War paranoia mixed with Japanese monster mythology.
There's a certain logic to the illogic of the Godzilla universe. We suspend our disbelief and allow ourselves to be swept away by the sheer audacity of it all. It's a way for us to grapple with complex issues and fears in a safe and entertaining way.
A giant monster-sized metaphor for the absurdity of life itself. We've talked about how Godzilla reflects our anxieties about nuclear power, But what about other social and political themes? Does Godzilla have anything to say about those?
Godzilla films have often served as a platform for exploring a wide range of social and political issues. Environmentalism, militarism,
Right.
the dangers of unchecked technological advancement.
In the 1960s, Godzilla became a symbol of anti-war sentiment. Films like Godzilla vs. Monster Zero depict the horrors of nuclear war and the futility of violence.
Later films often use Godzilla to represent the forces of nature, highlighting the importance of environmental protection and the consequences of human interference with the natural world.
Right.
This shift in Godzilla's portrayal reflects the changing social and political landscape. As the threat of nuclear war subsided, environmental concerns took center stage, and Godzilla, the embodiment of nature's wrath, became a potent symbol of the potential consequences of environmental destruction.
Godzilla has become a kind of ecological superhero, battling against the forces that threaten our planet.
This message resonates even more strongly today as we face the growing challenges of climate change and environmental degradation. Godzilla's battles against monsters born from pollution and environmental disregard serve as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of all living things and the need for a more sustainable future.
Godzilla has become a cultural touchstone, a figure that reflects our changing values and anxieties.
Godzilla continues to evolve, adapting to the changing times and speaking to the issues most relevant to each generation.
Right.
From nuclear anxieties to environmental concerns, from social unrest to technological fears.
Yeah.
Godzilla has served as a canvas on which we project our collective hopes and anxieties.
A giant monster-sized barometer of our collective consciousness. Godzilla's greatest legacy is its ability to entertain us, transport us to a world of giant monsters and epic battles, and remind us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there's always hope for survival.
And maybe a little bit of fun along the way. The enduring appeal of Godzilla lies in its ability to entertain while simultaneously prompting reflection on complex issues. This delicate balance is what allows the franchise to resonate across generations and cultures, solidifying its place in cinematic history.
Until the next giant monster rises from the depths, let's keep watching, keep learning, and keep celebrating the king of the monsters, Godzilla.